Hey, what's up? Thought I'd throw a couple charts on here talking about the pretty much the broad market because I'm looking at the weekly and then I'm going to look at the monthly. So I'm looking at long-term broad market trend, primary trend, those kind of things. First thing I was going to look at was this chart here. The got Bitcoin, dollar. It's just a Coinbase chart on this one on the weekly chart. I know there's a bunch on here, but I was really kind of talking to a couple of people on Twitter, and I threw this chart out there, and they wanted some explanation, so I thought I'd do a quick video on it. Uh, Basically, it's all about this supportive buy zone that I have highlighted right in here. And what I marked was I feel like there's like triple support right here. We have one, the trend line. If you take the trend off of this one right here, you got a trend line that should show some buying interest or an area of support. The 55 EMA on the weekly, this orange line right here, has been pretty significant when it comes to support and resistance, or at least support and resistance flips. Where it's hit a few times here, or a couple times, and found some buying interest. And then also the 61.8% Fibonacci level. The one I'm looking at right now is the start from this low, but I'll show you what I like to look at here in a second. Right now, that 61.8% level is about 73.85. So it's a little bit lower than the market and a little bit underneath the trend line. But when I look at the Fibonacci level, I like to look at it in a couple different ways, and one of them is based on where a market breaks out in trend. So if we go back here and look at some Fibonacci lines here, if you go back here and start at the 100%, work your way down here, it worked its way up to the 38.2% level right here. But when you look at the the market right here, it was just starting to flip to the bears. Now it was kind of tangled up, so it wasn't the best signal in the world, and the ADX was dropping, and then the bears did start to take over right in here as the red negative directional index took over a little bit. ADX was low, so you had this like kind of slanted consolidation to the downside right in this area right here. But the one thing that's interesting is that the red negative directional index did not cross here when it was testing the trend line. It did not cross here when it was testing the trend line, and then eventually, kicked in some momentum right here and got that kind of capitulation here to get that low that we saw back in December. But it's right at this point right here where the green positive directional index crossed above the red right here, and then it also gained some momentum. Right at this point is right at this, you had this little area of consolidation with slight bullishness as the bears were, it was a tough call in here. There was some, if you looked at some RSI and some of those other indicators, there was a lot of divergences going on. But it wasn't until this point where it broke to the upside, right when this crossed over and got momentum. So what I like to do is I like to take the Fibonacci from the level of break. So the break point right at this point is when the momentum started to kick into the market. Now, if you move the Fibonacci up to that level, you'll see that the 61.8% level is from this low, or from when this started all the way up to the high, and then you bring it back. The 61.8% level matches up really nicely with the 55 EMA. So you have that as a possible area of support. Now, even if you took it down here on this latest leg, you still got a lot of support underneath here, and a lot of buying interest before you even get to that point. So, right there, I got a lot of support levels here for the primary market. Now, the fourth support is down here where, how we talked about over here where the bears didn't cross, or the green didn't cross over to the red held here. It crossed here, but the interesting thing is it came down here and it did not cross. So that right there tells us that the bulls are still in control of the trend, or the primary trend, when it comes to the long-term weekly look. Now, yes, the momentum is dropping, and that's why we're in this excuse me, we're in this area of consolidation. But that's why I call this a supportive zone, because if you look at some of these Fibonacci levels, From when this leg started here and you go down to this low, the 61.8% level is at 85.21. You know, once it got up to that level, it broke and made a full retracement right here, all the way from this low up to this high, and broke there, and then it came back down. It is back underneath this 61.8% level, but this is kind of the area of resistance for this zone. And then the other 61.8% comes into play off of this leg or even this leg, is an area where we're really tight, and it's kind of in between this 8100, 8400. But there's a lot of other interest in there that kind of should hold the market with a lot of buying interest long term. Now, a break of this level would be kind of disastrous, I think, because with a lot of intersection of support, if this breaks, there's going to be a major reason on why, and I think a lot of buyers in the market that have been buying in this area are going to drop out, and it could get kind of ugly. I think it could, work its way back down. I mean, you could take some other, Fibonacci levels. Um, you know, go in the other direction. Um, you could take it from this way, so which is the one that's on there already. But if you take that and you take that 61.8%, you could get a full retracement, all the way back down to into the $4,000 or $5,000 range. But this trend line right here should kind of bring in some support also. So depending on if this breaks and it works down, I mean, you're talking into the 5,000 range. So this is a pretty significant level to hold. So I'm really hoping it holds. I have bought additional in here. Again, not buying, not saying any financial advice, but I'm just this is where I've been doing some buying because there's a lot of support. So I like that long-term trend. So hopefully, I mean, it's kind of a confusing chart. So hopefully you got something out of that. If you go, let me go back and pull up another chart real quick. Another one I got is I thought I had a monthly in here. Yeah, right here. I thought this was kind of interesting. I mean, just kind of looking at you know moving averages on the monthly. I got the 8, the 13, the 21, and the 34. And the interesting thing that I saw on here on the monthly, if you look at this trend line right here, right when we made a low over here, and then it broke the trend line to the upside and kind of changed trend right here. The moving average, the red moving average is the 8. So if you look at the 8 right here, it did not cross down through the 34. And then it crossed back up through the 13 and the 21. So it's interesting, when it broke this trend, it didn't continue the trend, and it kind of worked its way up. And then at this cross, the other two moving averages above the 21, the green's the 21, and then you got the blue that is the 13, and then the 8. And then when the 8 and the 13 are back above the 21. As you notice that it did wick down to here on the blue, it did, and then it kind of stayed as really nice support all the way up, and then of course it broke down here, and then it worked its way down again, and the same kind of thing. You got a trend line here where it's broke to the upside, where the 8 did not cross down through the 34, and then these are back above the 21, where just like back here, it found some support at the 13, and then of course it kept above the 8. And right now it's testing support on the 8. It wicked down a little bit to where it almost touched the 13, but the thing is it's kind of holding above the 8, to where if this kind of holds true and holds support as the market works its way up, hopefully it gets a buying interest like we saw on the weekly. If we get a couple weeks of buying interest and this starts to kick up, these moving averages will start to turn and bring us a little bit of a guide of support going forward. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Not much to trade off of it, just kind of showing that these are pretty key areas for support long term on the monthly, just like we looked at on the weekly. So primary trend is still with the bulls for me. So internally, I'm doing some buying off those indicators. and see if it holds. If not, I'm going to be stopped out and watching for a lot further downside if it does not hold, because there's way too much buying interest, or a lot of intersections of support levels that people should be looking at, and buyers should be coming into the market. And if they don't, I don't want to be in there. So, all right. Any questions, comments? What's going on out there? DM me out on Twitter. I'm at FiboSwanny. So if you have any questions or anything, I'm here to help. And happy trading and peace out.